There is something almost humiliating about realizing you are drawn to the one person who gives you the least, the one who replies hours later, the one who seems warm one day and distant the next, the one whose attention feels like a rare currency. And yet, instead of walking away, you lean in, you think about them more, you try harder, you replay conversations, you analyze tone shifts, you convince yourself that if you could just unlock something inside them, everything would change. This isn't weakness, it's psychology. When we chase people who give us the least attention, we are not actually chasing them. We are chasing a feeling of validation, safety, worth, or completion that we unconsciously believe they control. The roots of this behavior often trace back further than we realize. Early attachment experiences shape the blueprint of how we connect. If love felt inconsistent growing up, sometimes warm, sometimes withdrawn, your nervous system learned something powerful. Attention must be earned. Affection is not stable. It fluctuates. And so you adapted, you became vigilant, you monitored moods, you worked harder for approval, you equated effort with love. As adults, this conditioning doesn't disappear. It just changes form. When someone gives steady, consistent attention, it may feel unfamiliar, even boring. There's no emotional spike, no tension, no uncertainty. But when someone is unpredictable, your nervous system lights up. The uncertainty creates anxiety, and the relief of receiving their attention creates a rush. It becomes a cycle of tension and reward. This pattern is closely tied to intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes gambling addictive. When rewards are unpredictable, they become more powerful. A text after hours of silence feels more meaningful. A small compliment feels intoxicating. You begin to associate that person with emotional highs, even if those highs are surrounded by long stretches of doubt. It feels like passion. It feels like chemistry. But often, it's your attachment system trying to resolve unfinished emotional business. Another layer of this pattern is tied to self-worth. If somewhere deep down you believe you are not fully enough, you will be magnetized toward people who confirm that belief, not consciously. When someone withholds attention, it activates an old narrative. I need to prove myself. The chase becomes an attempt to rewrite that story. If you can get the emotionally unavailable person to choose you, it feels like evidence that you are finally worthy. But notice the trap. Your sense of worth becomes dependent on convincing someone who is not offering stability. That keeps you stuck in performance mode, adjusting your personality, minimizing your needs, pretending you are less affected than you are. Over time, this dynamic reshapes how you experience yourself. You become hyper-aware of their behavior but disconnected from your own emotions. You check your phone more than you check in with your body. You interpret silence as rejection. You rehearse conversations in your head. You feel anxious but call it liking them. What you're really feeling is activation. The brain does not distinguish well between anxiety and attraction. Both increase heart rate, both heighten alertness, both create mental preoccupation. If someone is emotionally inconsistent, your body stays on edge. That edge can feel thrilling, especially if calmness has historically been associated with disconnection. There's also the illusion of scarcity. When someone seems hard to get, your brain assigns them higher value. It interprets limited access as proof of desirability. You begin to think, if they don't give attention easily, it must mean they're special. In reality, limited availability often reflects emotional limitations, not superiority. But the mind prefers a narrative of challenge over one of incompatibility. This dynamic can deeply affect everyday life. You may notice you ignore red flags, you excuse behavior that would upset you in any other context, you rationalize distance as independence. You convince yourself they're just busy. You might even feel proud of your patience, not realizing it's self-abandonment. In relationships, this creates imbalance. You give more than you receive. You wait more than you are pursued. You analyze more than you are reassured. And because the attention feels scarce, you treat every small effort as a grand gesture. Your standards quietly lower. Emotionally, it's exhausting. The constant uncertainty keeps cortisol elevated. Sleep can suffer. Focus can drift. Your mood becomes dependent on their responsiveness. If they're attentive, you feel secure. If they withdraw, you spiral. Your emotional state becomes externally controlled, and yet walking away feels harder than staying. Why? Because leaving means confronting the original wound. It means accepting that you cannot force someone to choose you. It means grieving not only the person, but the fantasy of being finally seen, finally prioritized, finally enough. There is also fear of stability. Consistent love requires vulnerability. When someone is steady, there's nowhere to hide. You can't blame anxiety on mixed signals. You can't interpret silence as mystery. You have to be fully present. And if you are used to earning love, receiving it freely can feel disorienting. Many people mistake emotional unavailability for strength. They admire detachment. They interpret indifference as confidence. But often, detachment is simply avoidance. And when you chase someone avoidant, you unconsciously step into the anxious role, amplifying pursuit to compensate for withdrawal. This anxious avoidant dynamic is powerful because it mirrors familiar emotional rhythms. It feels like home, even if home was chaotic. But here's the truth that can feel uncomfortable. When you chase someone who gives you the least attention, you are participating in the cycle, not causing it, but sustaining it. The more you pursue, the more they distance. The more they distance, the more valuable they seem. The cycle feeds itself. Breaking this pattern is not about becoming cold or playing games. It's about shifting where you seek validation. Instead of asking, why don't they give me more? The deeper question is, why do I feel compelled to earn what should be freely given? Healing begins with noticing your body's reaction to inconsistency. When you feel the urge to send another message, pause. Ask what you're actually seeking. Reassurance, security, clarity. Then consider whether that need can be met internally or through someone capable of mutual effort. It also requires redefining attraction. Attraction should not feel like chronic anxiety. It should not require guessing games. Emotional safety is not boring. It is regulated. When your nervous system is calm, you may initially interpret it as lack of spark, but often it's the absence of threat. This shift can feel uncomfortable at first. You might feel less obsessed, less consumed, less desperate for the next message. That is not a loss of passion. It is the beginning of stability. You deserve relationships where attention is not a prize but a baseline, where communication is not sporadic but consistent, where your needs are not excessive but respected. And perhaps most importantly, you deserve to give yourself the attention you so desperately seek from others. The pattern of chasing fades when you learn to validate yourself. When your worth no longer depends on someone choosing you, you become less magnetized to those who withhold. This doesn't happen overnight. These patterns are wired through years of emotional conditioning. But awareness is powerful. Each time you resist overextending for someone who underdelivers, you rewire your response. Each time you choose reciprocity over intensity, you build a new blueprint. You are not irrational for wanting love. You are not foolish for feeling drawn to someone unavailable. Your nervous system is trying to solve something old. It is trying to complete a story that once felt unfinished. But you don't have to finish it with the same type of person who started it. Real healing happens when you realize that the love you are chasing is often the love you needed earlier in life. And instead of hunting for it in someone emotionally distant, you begin offering yourself consistency, patience, and compassion. When you stop chasing people who give you the least attention, something shifts. You feel less frantic, less uncertain, more grounded. The relationships that remain may not feel explosive, but they feel safe. And safety, over time, creates deeper intimacy than unpredictability ever could. You are allowed to want someone who wants you back without hesitation. You are allowed to be chosen without performing. And the moment you internalize that, the chase loses its grip.